This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather Holders, Jeff Godami, welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this date. And on this day, January 19th, 1991, 3 decades plus ago, the NHL's All-Star Game happened in Chicago. The Blackhawks were hoping to host the All-Star Game and then maybe get a Stanley Cup. It happens. All that. So, anyway, there was a lot of things going on. First of all, before the game even started, there was controversy in team selection. Mike Milbury, who was coach of the Wales Conference, or as we now know as the Eastern Conference, put Chris Nyland and Brian Skrulland in the game instead of Kurt Muller and probably Guy Lafleur. The only problem was that Nyland and Skrulland would actually both be injured, so they couldn't kind of compete. As a result of these picks, the league's board of governors stated that future teams would be chosen by committee. And, well, also by the fans. And this was huge and all that. The commissioner would actually appoint senior members to honor their years in the game for a while. So that would be the tradition. So Bobby Smith of the Minnesota North Stars and Guy Lafleur of the Quebec Nordiques would actually be appointed in this manner. So anyway, the big problem was that Edmonton's coach Sean Muckler, who was coaching the Campbell Conference, or the Western Conference as we know it as now, actually ended up selecting Bill Ranford, his own goalie, against Chicago's Ed Belfour for the All-Star game. Now, at that time in 91, there were only 2 goalies per squad. So anyway, it was Belfour and Mike Vernon who were in the nets. Ranford and Vernon. Muckler actually was not too happy with the fans' reaction. But Muckler also said, why don't we just have 3 goalies, each one playing a period? The league said, okay, let's do it. So in 92, they changed that rule. Anyway, the big thing was that it was time for the Super Skills competition. So the Super Skills on the Friday before the game happened. Players would compete in 3 individual events: hardest shot, goalies, like best goalie, saving shots, and the accuracy shooting with those targets. Mark Messier ended up winning the accuracy competition. Al McGinnis had the hardest shot, and Patty Waugh had been the best goalie in the situation. And then, of course, there was an alumni game between Blackhawks alumni and the best of the rest. So it would be fun. Unfortunately, the Heroes of Hockey game had some boycotters. No Gordie Howe, no Bobby Orr, no Ted Lindsay, or Fripp Polovich. Due to the pension problems that arose at the start of the 90 All-Star game. But anyway, the Alumni Association thought there was a $12 million pension surplus, which they should have gotten and all that. And Howe was only paid $1,200 per month. All that. Of course, years later, we would learn that Alan Eagleson would basically be giving people off and just paying off his so-called friends, if you will. However, there was one key event, and that was the war on fighting and all that. Because this was played in the shadow of the Gulf War. It was Operation Desert Storm. Try to get rid of Saddam Hussein for his attacks on Iraq and Iran. A lot of people, like Wayne Gretzky, whose grandfather was in World War I and his cousin was abroad at the time, called for the game to be canceled, saying saying that, Gretzky was actually adamant on the state of fighting in the NHL, saying that he hated sportscasters saying it looks like a hockey game out there when a bench brawl takes place in other sports. Anyway, so in the shadow of it, it was going to happen. So the Campbell Conference, or the West Conference, took on the Eastern Conference Wales Conference. So this was the starting lineup. The starting lineup for the Wales Conference were, on forwards, it was Cam Neely, Joe Sakic, and Rick Tocchet, with Paul Coffey and Ray Bork on defense, Patty Waugh in the net. Guy Lafleur was picked as the commissioner's selection. And key reserves were Brian Leach, Huey Krupp, John Cullen, Mark Recchi, John McClain, Pat Verbeek, Pat LaFontaine, Denny Savard, Kevin Stevens, and Andy Moog. The Campbells had in net Mike Vernon. The defense were Al McGinnis and Chris Chelios, and the three starters were Oates. On forward were Oates, Robitaille, and Gretzky. Bobby Smith of the North Stars commissioner's selection. The reserves were Scott Stevens, Steve Smith, Phil Housley, Thomas Sandstrom, Vinny Dompoos, Mark Messier, Teal Fleury, Steve Geiserman, Trevor Linden, Jeremy Roenick, among others. So that's what happened. So the game would be played in the shadow of Operation Desert Storm, and the pregame was huge. It was really huge because in the shadow of it was Wayne Messmer, the key anthem singer for the Blackhawks, would sing both the Canadian and American national anthems. But if you watch the tape of it on YouTube about the American national anthem and how the fans were cheering that American national anthem and almost drowned out Messmer, it was huge because it was USA pride for Operation Desert Storm, and that's the truth. So anyway, it was amazing. Messmer's national anthem basically overshadowed the game, if you will. But still, it's one of the best national anthems of all time. And all that. It's on par with the 94 national anthem of Game 7 of Stanley Cup Finals when John Ammirati tried to sing the national anthem for Madison Square Garden, but was drowned out by cheers and all that. Anyway, so the game happened, and the Campbells won 11-5. The Whales had 2 goals by Patty LaFontaine, a goal by Patty LaFontaine of the New York Islanders, 1 goal by Rick Tocchet of the Flyers, 1 goal by John McClain of the Devils, and 1 goal by Kevin Stevens of the Penguins. The Campbells scored 11 goals. And Vinny Dompoos of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, everyone knows he was a Montreal Canadian. But people forget that Dompoos played for the Leafs. He was drafted by the Leafs and was traded to Edmonton in September 91. But yeah, he scored not 1, not 2, but 4 goals in the All-Star game to tie Mario Lemieux's mark, which he set the previous year. Adam Oates would score a goal and 4 assists. Oates from the St. Louis Blues. Dave Gagne scored of the Minnesota North Stars. Gary Sutter of the Flames scored. Wayne Gretzky of the Kings scored a goal. Theo Fleury of the Flames scored. JR from the Blackhawks scored. And Chelios scored as a Blackhawk. Campbells won 11-5. Unofficial win was by Bill Ranford, lost by Andy Moog. But who really cares? All that. So Brett Hall was supposed to play in the game, but he was injured, so Amos was the replacement. As I said, Chris Nyland, Burns, Greenland were named to the team but couldn't play. And Larry Robinson was named to the Campbells but couldn't play. In fact, it was at this game where the tradition of cheering during the national anthem prior to every Blackhawks game was introduced to the nation. It was actually a Hawks tradition since 1985. But yeah, the tradition of cheering during the national anthem before each game was introduced to the nation. And it's done today before all Blackhawks home games. So yeah, what a time to be alive, if you will. And that's the truth. Anyway, I'm Jan19.